Cody and Brandi Rhodes' new reality show, Rose to the Top. Folks, I checked out the first episode. Let's jump into my review of that right now. What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the channel today for another review. And today we're going to be talking about the series Rose to the Top, and this is going to be my review of the first episode, which this series will be premiering September 29th on TNT. Now, there's a lot I want to lay out here before I actually get into the specifics of this episode. Number one, Cody and Brandi Rhodes, the power couple amongst AEW, All Elite Wrestling. If you are a wrestling fan, then you already knew that. If you don't, and then you may know Brandi from another reality show, Wags, Once Upon a Time, and then her husband, Cody Rhodes, who is a very famous and popular wrestler, the son of the legend Dusty Rhodes here. They're married. They're in the beginning of this, Brandi is pregnant, but it's all really encompassed about life of being a wrestling power couple, her through her pregnancy, and Cody and his duties amongst the company that he is the executive vice president of in AEW. So, much like every reality show, this show feels absolutely no different as far as the toning, as far as how it's shot, the interview, backstage, all that other stuff. It all feels exactly the same. So, and the thing is, that's not a knock on it, because when you want to get your uncasual fans who may not know who you are, you want it to kind of feel like a show that you could just easily get into, because you so easily recognize the styling of television from other things. And I think that I fell victim to something like that with like Chris Lee Knows Best. Like, I really have never heard of that guy, but I was like, okay, this kind of feels like another show I'll give it a try. And that went from that to the next show to the next show. And by all means, I'm not really a fan of reality TV. I don't seek it, but if you catch my attention, then I'll check it out. And this happens to be the best of both worlds here, where I like pro wrestling, I recognize who these two people are, and then on top of that, I have been suckered into reality shows that I wasn't really interested in, but I was like, you know what, I'll try it out, and then I was hooked. So, my first instant impressions of this show is that I like it. It really gives a lot. It gives you the stories behind the scenes, behind the curtains, both in the ring, or when I say in the ring, I mean actually in regards to AEW, and both at home. And because of my investment into pro wrestling, it's kind of cool to kind of know and see stories on the surface, and then being able to connect it with the things that they're telling here and seeing that all come full circle. So that was really a part of my appreciation upon checking this out, is that kind of seeing how this story all plays out. And I'll get into like specifics of that to a point. But yeah, the production was pretty much the same as, I've been accustomed to in regards to other reality shows. And, I laughed, I felt emotionally connected, and I'm intrigued to see what more they got to tell for this season, because for the main focal points that they hit on this first episode, I definitely was like, I am very intrigued. I'm very intrigued for a lot of reasons. I'm very intrigued to see what other stories they tackle. I'm intrigued to see what depth of the stories that they are. Like, there's a particular part of this episode where I feel like they only hit the surface of it, when if you keep up with everything, Twitter and all that other stuff, then there was a lot more that happened with this story, you know what I mean? And that's cool, because you got an hour. You only got an hour, so you can't put everything in there. But for the aspects that they did touch on, I'm not mad at all. So let's start off with this too. Cody, who is your executive vice president of AEW, we know he's also a talent. He wrestles. So him talking about the balance of duties amongst wrestlers, and how he's kind of torn between it, and how he, ultimately has to put the business before anything personal that he wants to do. He also talked about something I thought that was really interesting as well too, how like he really gets no privacy because everyone's always knocking on his door about things, and they really did show from the basic minimum stuff of people addressing him with also very high level, like, okay, we need to bring this to your attention now because this is a big deal, so like he gets it all, and at the same time too, he's still also trying to keep his character in composure and making sure that whatever his program is for the day, with it, that he has that all practiced and ready to go. And then Brandi, we talked about Brandi and her duties as well. And not just that, the more the focal point we're here is that Brandi put a lot of emphasis on the women's division and just women in general in AEW, and also her legacy with her being pregnant and being a mom and her responsibilities with that, how she still really desires to be a wrestler, and how she does not want this to be like the last thing for her to be known for, is that, hey, she got pregnant and then she rolled out, so she talked a lot about the balance about that for her and her day-to-day. So, and she also put a lot of emphasis that her pregnancy by no means was easy. She said it was very challenging, and she really laid out the details of the things that she dealt with all the time. With that being said, while some of this stuff may seem to come off my tongue as being like harsh or like, I don't know, critical, this show is very light tone. So you won't, at least for the first episode, you won't expect yourself to be dwelling in a pool of emotion because of some of the things that are occurring. They really keep this light. They keep it, I won't say overly family friendly, but I think it is very much enough that everybody in the family, maybe not the kids at times, can enjoy this. Meaning that there is wrestling stuff, there is very relatable friendly stuff, and then there's just societal stuff. So they mesh it all together pretty good. Going into really, this is like really in particular like wrestling things, Darby Allin, who is a phenomenal talent, he showed in this episode. I gotta say, he's one of the most authentic people that they showed in this episode, and I would not be mad if we got to get more of him in this, yet alone his own show. I really like Darby from what I see on AEW, from what I know of him, working out on the independents, but ultimately to see him in this show really talk about his life, talk about preparations for big matches, I appreciate that guy so much more. The big thing here, folks, of this episode was the controversial promo that Cody cut, that talked about, how do I put this? I ain't going to even say what it talked about, but it's a controversial promo that Cody cut on one episode of AEW Dynamite, and it was definitely something that everyone talked about. I had no clue that they were going to address this in this episode, and they did very minimally. Very minimally. But when they did talk about the promo, they showed Cody preparing for it, him literally preparing for this, him even acknowledging that this promo felt good to him. And I still think he bombed it. But the biggest thing from this was that they showed backstage people watching him do this promo. They showed all the talent, black talent, white talent, veterans, rookies, everybody, until they actually got to the specifics of him saying what he's saying. So basically they showed him getting ready to go out there and say what he was going to say, and everybody's watching, and they're just cutting the different people watching it. But then when he actually was cutting it, they only focused on his brother and Brandi, and then the owner of AEW and Tony Khan, which I thought was very interesting because the comments made, some felt was insensitive to black people, and they didn't show the black people reaction, which I was just like, if they show this could be very interesting. So I'm a little mixed feeling about that. I will say that it's really good for television, but I was like, wow, they told it, but only told a little bit, only showed a little bit. It kind of felt like this was put in there for, I don't know, show purposes, when this was actually a very controversial thing that could have just not been told at all, because of the different mixed feelings that came from out of this, but they did it. They did it. And then they had to show the guy in the crowd with the Black Lives Matter shirt again, which whatever. But whatever. I thought the next thing too was that again, it was really interesting how this felt like extra content. From everything that you know about watching a product, by watching on TV, by the things you read in all of the media blogs and whatnot, by the stuff you watch on Twitter, that this still was able to present some very other unique behind the scene DLC extra content type of stuff here. So I again, there's still substance within this show of things you may not known or heard. Like for one, Jade Cargill, who is one of their newest and most biggest rising talents that they have. She and another talent, Red Velvet, they had this little segment backstage, and it was an exchange of slaps. Quite frankly, they said that Jade smacked Red Velvet too hard, left a handprint on her face, and potentially may have injured her. And they had to address her about that. And Jade was just kind of like, so first of all, the choice of words that Jade made towards Brandi, who Brandi was the one who had to inform her of it, I couldn't believe that she went like that. But it was interesting that they talked about this because I never knew nothing about it. And it was such a eye-opening, jaw-dropping moment of this episode. Like, oh, wow. And by the way, all the ladies, their fashion was on point the entire episode, especially Jade. Man, I saw her post a picture recently about her being at brunch. She is brunch ready the entire first episode. I got to tell you that. So yeah, there's that. So yeah, there's stories about that. Ricky Starks, another talent, they talked about him breaking his neck and the meeting that they had to have with him about, them getting having to alert him and that he was gonna have to be taken off of TV, maybe they can do something else. And that whole conversation with Ricky, and he kind of reserved about what was gonna happen next to him and all that other stuff, I thought was really good. I really enjoyed it and I really appreciated it. And I connected with Ricky and his reservations about like, I can't afford to do this right now. I gotta be able to go in the ring. So I really did appreciate that. There's tons of cameos. They're obviously meeting their family. The genetics, the genes are very strong in that Rhodes family. Everybody look like Dusty. Like everybody. The best, most interesting thing of this entire episode, believe it or not, is Brandi and Cody's sister talking about Cody's sister being completely not on board for Brandi using the Rhodes last name. She was not having it. And I couldn't believe I'd never heard that before. I do know more to this story, which I thought was interesting as well too, to kind of like be able to put a whole story together here. But that's just the fun of watching this, is that you're gonna be able to be like, oh, I get why such and such, you know what I mean? So that was one. Yeah, they talked about Brandi's new wine. But nonetheless, I'm definitely intrigued to see where this season goes. Like, this was a really good first episode. It gave a lot of interest, a lot of emotion. They left a lot on the table, so there's so much more they can do going forward. And I can't wait to see what happens. So, but again, folks, this is Rhodes to the Top premiering September 29th on TNT. Jump in the comments, folks. I know you all are excited for it. So let me know your thoughts about it, your excitement. And once you check it out, come back in the comments and let me know your thoughts about it. But until then, folks, stay tuned for more reviews of Rhodes to the Top coming soon.